I never thought I'd meet someone who would change my life in a place like that. But then again, I guess none of us end up in county jail expecting to find anything good. I was 22 years old, scared out of my mind and trying to keep my head down. I'd made a stupid mistake, got caught with drugs that weren't even mine, and now I was looking at 6 months. My public defender told me to take the plea deal, said I'd be out in 4 with good behaviour. 4 months felt like forever. The first week was the hardest. I kept to myself, didn't make eye contact, didn't talk to anyone unless I had to. I'd heard all the stories about what happens to guys like me inside, and I wasn't about to give anyone a reason to notice me. I was thin, quiet, probably looked like an easy target. So I just sat in my bunk, read the same 3 books from the library cart over and over, and counted down the days. Then one Tuesday morning during breakfast, someone sat down across from me. I looked up, ready to move if I needed to, and saw him. He had dark hair that fell across his forehead, brown eyes that seemed too gentle for this place, and a small scar above his left eyebrow. He was maybe a year or 2 older than me, with broad shoulders and tattooed forearms. But it was his smile that caught me off guard. It was genuine, warm, completely out of place in that fluorescent-lit cafeteria. "You're new," he said, not as a question but as an observation. His voice was low and calm. "I'm Luca." "Reed," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. I glanced around, wondering if this was some kind of setup. Nobody just sat down and introduced themselves in here. "Relax," he said, like he could read my mind. "I'm not looking for trouble. Just noticed you've been eating alone for a week. Figured you might want some company, or at least someone to warn you that the Thursday meatloaf is basically inedible." I couldn't help it. I almost smiled. Almost. "Thanks for the tip." "No problem." He started eating his own breakfast, not pushing for conversation, just being present. It was strange, comfortable even. After a few minutes of silence, he spoke again. "First time?" I nodded. "Yeah, I could tell. You've got that look, like you're waiting for something terrible to happen." He paused, took a sip of the watery orange juice they served. "It's not as bad as you think. Just keep your head down. Don't get involved in other people's business and you'll be fine. How long you in for?" 4 months probably, maybe less with good behaviour. "That's nothing. You'll be out before you know it." There was something in his voice, a hint of something sad. "I've got another year." A year. I looked at him more closely. He didn't seem like someone who belonged here either. But then again, what did I know? Yeah, got caught stealing a car, except it was my ex-boyfriend's car, and I was just trying to get my stuff back after he kicked me out. But the cops didn't see it that way. He shrugged, like it didn't matter, but I could see the tension in his jaw. Turns out, when your ex is the one who calls the police and you don't have proof you lived there, it's just theft. That was the first time I really looked at him, really saw him. He'd said boyfriend, just said it casually, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I'd never heard anyone in here talk like that. I'd barely heard anyone outside talk like that. I'd spent my whole life hiding who I was, terrified someone would figure it out. And here was this guy, in jail, just putting it out there. "Oh," was all I could say. Luca looked at me then, really looked at me, and something passed between us. Understanding, maybe. Recognition. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Oh." After that, we started eating breakfast together every morning, then lunch, then dinner. Luca had been in for 8 months already, so he knew the routines, knew which guards were decent and which ones to avoid, knew how to make the time pass. He taught me how to play chess with pieces we made from torn-up paper, and how to work out in our cells using just our body weight. He told me about his life before, about growing up in foster care, about the series of bad relationships and worse decisions that led him here. I started opening up too, slowly. Told him about my parents who hadn't visited once since I got locked up, about the friends who disappeared the second I was arrested, about the degree I'd been working toward that was probably gone now. I didn't tell him everything, not at first, but gradually in those quiet moments between counts and lights out, I told him things I'd never told anyone. "I've never actually been with anyone," I admitted one night. We were in the rec room, sitting against the wall while other guys watched a basketball game on the ancient TV. Like, I've known since I was 14, but I've never done anything about it, never even told anyone. Luca was quiet for a moment, his shoulder pressed against mine in the crowded room. "You're telling me now?" "Yeah, I guess I am." My heart was pounding. It feels different here, like none of the old rules apply. They don't, he said. In here, you can be whoever you really are. Nobody cares. Everyone's got their own problems. He turned to look at me and his eyes were soft. For what it's worth, I think it's brave. Telling me. Doesn't feel brave. It is, though. His hand moved slightly, his pinky finger brushing against mine where our hands rested on the floor between us. It was the smallest touch. Barely anything, but it sent electricity through my entire body. Trust me. I wanted to say something, wanted to move my hand closer, wanted to do something about the feeling that was building in my chest every time I looked at him. But I was scared. Scared of what it meant, scared of getting hurt, scared of wanting something I couldn't have. So I just sat there, feeling the warmth of his finger against mine, and tried to memorize the moment. The weeks passed. I got a job in the library, which meant more time out of my cell and more time to see Luca. He worked in the kitchen, which meant he could sometimes sneak an extra apple or a cookie from dinner. He'd save them for me, pass them to me during rec time with that same gentle smile. We'd sit in the corner of the yard when the weather was decent, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about wanting to go back to school, about his dream of becoming a social worker to help kids like he'd been. I told him about my love of photography, how I used to spend hours just walking around the city taking pictures of ordinary moments that felt extraordinary through a lens. "You'll do that again," he said one afternoon. We were lying on the grass looking up at the clouds through the chain-link fence that surrounded the yard. "When you get out, you'll go back to school, get your degree, become this amazing photographer." "Maybe," I said. "What about you? You really think you'll become a social worker with a record?" I have to believe it's possible. Otherwise, what's the point? He rolled onto his side, propping his head up on his hand to look at me. "We can't let our worst moments define us forever, Reed. We get to choose who we become after this." I turned my head to meet his gaze. We were close, closer than we probably should be in a place like this. I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, the way his lashes were longer than they had any right to be. I could smell the industrial soap we all use, but somehow smelled different on him. "What if I don't know how to choose?" I whispered. "Then you start with something small. You decide to be brave for just one moment, and then another, and then another." His hand reached out and his fingers brushed a strand of hair off my forehead. The touch was so gentle it made my chest ache. "You're braver than you think." I wanted to kiss him. God, I wanted to kiss him so badly it hurt. But there were guards watching, other inmates around, and I wasn't ready for what that would mean. So instead I just smiled and said, "You make me want to be." Something shifted between us after that. We were more careful, but also closer. We developed our own language, our own small gestures that meant something only to us. A certain look across the cafeteria that meant I'm thinking about you. A tap on the shoulder during count that meant I'm here. The way we'd sit just a little too close during movie nights in the rec room, our arms pressed together, stealing warmth and comfort from each other. 3 weeks before my release date, Luca got into a fight. It wasn't his fault. Some guy had been harassing a younger inmate and Luca stepped in. He got a black eye and a split lip, and the other guy got a broken nose. They both got thrown in solitary for a week. I didn't see him, didn't know if he was okay, couldn't sleep because all I could think about was him alone in that cell. When he finally came back, he looked exhausted, thinner, like something had been drained out of him. I found him in the library during my shift. He was sitting at one of the tables just staring at nothing. I sat down across from him, and when he looked up his eyes were red. "Hey," I said softly. "Hey." His voice was rough, unused. "You okay?" He shook his head. "No, not really." He glanced around, making sure no one was close enough to hear. "Reed, I need to tell you something before you leave, before I lose my nerve." My heart started racing. "Okay. These past few months with you, they've been the best part of being in this place, the best part of my whole year, honestly. And I know we can't do anything about it in here, and I know you're leaving soon, but I just need you to know that I care about you. More than I probably should. More than is smart." He looked down at his hands, which were shaking slightly. "I'm in love with you, and I know that's crazy, and I know this isn't the time or place, but I couldn't let you walk out of here without saying it. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel this overwhelming wave of emotion crashing over me." "Luca," I started, but he held up his hand. "You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. I needed to be brave for one moment like I told you to be." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "When you get out, you're going to have this whole new life. You're going to do amazing things, and I'm going to be happy for you, even if I'm not part of it." "Stop," I said, my voice cracking. "Just stop." I reached across the table and grabbed his hand, not caring who saw. "You think I don't feel the same way? You think these months haven't been everything to me? I'm terrified, Luca. I'm terrified because I've never felt this way about anyone, and I don't know what to do about it, and I hate that I'm leaving you here." His eyes widened. "Reed, I love you too. I think I've loved you since that first breakfast when you sat down across from me and smiled like this place wasn't hell. And I don't know what happens next, but I know I don't want to lose you." We sat there, holding hands across that library table, and for a moment, nothing else existed. Not the guards, not the bars, not the time we had left or the time we didn't. Just us. Just this feeling between us that was bigger than both of us. My last 2 weeks went by too fast. We made plans. I'd wait for him. He'd write to me. When he got out, we'd figure it out together. We exchanged addresses, phone numbers that might not work, promises we hoped we could keep. On my last night, we sat in the rec room long after everyone else had gone back to their cells. The guard on duty was one of the decent ones, and he gave us an extra 20 minutes. "Promise me something," Luca said, his hand clasped in mine under the table where no one could see. "Promise me you'll live your life. Don't put everything on hold waiting for me. Go to school, make friends, take pictures, be happy." "Luca, I'm serious. I'll be out in 10 months. That's not that long, but I need to know you're out there living, not just waiting. Can you promise me that?" I nodded, even though my throat was too tight to speak. I wanted to tell him that waiting for him wouldn't be putting my life on hold, that he was part of the life I wanted to build. But I just squeezed his hand tighter and said, "I promise. But you have to promise me something too. Promise me you won't give up on this. On us." "Never," he said, and he meant it. I could see it in his eyes. Never. The next morning, I left. Luca wasn't at breakfast. I think he couldn't handle saying goodbye in front of everyone. I understood. I walked out of that facility with my small bag of belongings, and I felt like I was leaving a piece of myself behind. The first few months on the outside were harder than I expected. I moved back in with my parents, which was tense and awkward. They didn't ask where I'd been, and I didn't volunteer the information. I got a job at a camera store, started saving money, enrolled in community college classes for the spring semester. I took pictures constantly, finding beauty in ordinary moments like I used to. And I wrote to Luca every week, long letters about what I was doing, what I was thinking, what I hoped for our future. He wrote back. His letters were full of hope and plans and love. He told me about his days, about the books he was reading, about the classes he was taking through the prison education program. He told me he was counting down the days until he could see me again. His release date was set for March 15th. I marked it on my calendar and crossed off each day, but then something happened. In January, his letters stopped coming. I wrote 3 times with no response. I called the facility, but they wouldn't tell me anything. I was terrified. Had something happened to him? Was he okay? Had he changed his mind about us? The not knowing was worse than anything. Finally, in February, I got a letter. But it wasn't from Luca. It was from his cellmate. The letter was short, apologetic. Luca had been transferred to a facility in another state. Something about overcrowding and budget issues. He didn't have my address anymore. He'd asked his cellmate to write to me, to tell me he was sorry, to tell me he hadn't forgotten. But there was no new address, no way to reach him. Just this message passed through a stranger, telling me that the person I loved was gone. I was devastated. I tried everything I could think of to find him, called facilities in neighbouring states, searched online databases, contacted advocacy groups. But privacy laws meant they couldn't tell me anything, and without knowing exactly where he'd been transferred, I had no way to track him down. After months of dead ends, I had to accept that I'd lost him, that whatever we'd had was gone. I tried to move on. I finished my associate degree, transferred to a 4-year university, got an internship at a photography studio. I dated a few people, nothing serious. I built a life, like I'd promised Luca I would. But there was always this ache, this missing piece, this wondering what if. 15 years passed. I became a photographer, mostly weddings and events. I had my own small studio, a decent apartment, good friends. I'd even been in a couple of relationships that lasted more than a year. But nothing ever felt quite right. Nothing ever felt like those few months with Luca had felt. I told myself I was being ridiculous, romanticizing a prison relationship that probably wouldn't have worked in the real world anyway, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. Couldn't stop wondering where he was, if he was happy, if he ever thought about me. Then one Saturday in October, I was shooting a wedding at a community centre downtown. It was a beautiful ceremony, 2 women who'd been together for 20 years finally able to legally marry. I was setting up for the reception shots when someone walked through the door and my entire world stopped. It was him. Older, with lines around his eyes and grey threading through his dark hair. He'd filled out, looked healthy and strong, but it was definitely him. Luca. After 15 years. At a wedding I was photographing. Our eyes met across the room, and I watched his expression change from casual interest to shock to something I couldn't quite name. He stood frozen in the doorway, and I stood frozen behind my camera, and for a moment we were 22 and 24 again, sitting across from each other in a jail cafeteria. Then he started walking toward me, and I started walking toward him, and we met in the middle of that community centre like 2 planets that had been orbiting each other for 15 years, finally colliding. Reed? His voice was the same, low and warm and familiar. Luca? I couldn't believe he was real, standing in front of me. What are you doing here? I'm friends with Sarah, one of the brides. We work together. I'm a social worker now. He said it with pride, and I remembered him lying in the grass talking about his dreams. What about you? I'm the photographer for the wedding. I gestured vaguely at my camera, still hanging around my neck. I can't believe you're here. I can't believe I'm seeing you. I tried to find you, he said quickly, urgently. After I got transferred, I tried everything, but I didn't have your information, and by the time I got out, you'd moved. I looked for you, Reed. For years, I looked for you. I looked for you too. My eyes were burning with tears I wouldn't let fall, not here, not now. I never stopped thinking about you. Me neither. He reached out, hesitated, then gently touched my arm. Just that small touch sent 15 years of longing and loss and love flooding through me. God, Reed, I thought I'd never see you again. Someone called my name. The wedding coordinator needed me for the couple's entrance. I wanted to ignore it, wanted to stand here with Luca forever, but I had a job to do. I have to work, I said desperately, but please, please don't leave. Stay for the reception. We need to talk. I'm not going anywhere, he promised. Not this time. I worked the rest of that wedding in a daze. I took the pictures I needed to take, smiled at the guests, did my job professionally. But the entire time, I was aware of Luca across the room. I'd catch glimpses of him talking to friends, laughing at something someone said, and my heart would skip. During the dinner, I saw him watching me too. Our eyes would meet, and the world would narrow to just us. After I finished the formal shots and the dancing started, I found him standing near the bar. Hey, I said, suddenly nervous. 15 years had passed. We were different people now. What if this feeling was just nostalgia? What if the reality couldn't live up to the memory? Hey, he smiled, and it was the same smile from that first breakfast. Genuine, warm, completely disarming. You're really talented. I watched you work. You make people feel comfortable. Thanks. And you became a social worker. You did it. Yeah. Took a while, and it wasn't easy with my record, but I found an agency that believes in second chances. He paused, took a breath. Reed, I know this is crazy. It's been 15 years. We're not the same people we were. But I need you to know that I never forgot you. I never forgot what we had, even if it was just for a few months in the worst place imaginable. It wasn't just a few months, I said. It was everything. You were the first person I ever told, the first person I ever loved. You changed my life, Luca. You changed mine too. He stepped closer, and we were in our own bubble despite the music and the celebration around us. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if you're seeing someone, or if too much time has passed, or if I'm being completely insane right now, but I'd really like to take you to dinner, maybe coffee first, or just a walk, anything, just to talk to you, to know you again. I laughed, and it came out half sob. Yes to all of that. Coffee, dinner, walks, whatever you want. I'm not seeing anyone, and you're not insane. Or if you are, then I am too, because I've been carrying you with me for 15 years. He smiled, really smiled, and it was like the sun coming out. Tomorrow? For coffee? Tomorrow, I agreed. But give me your number this time, and your address. I'm not losing you again. We exchanged information, real information this time, with cell phones and email addresses and no guards watching. When the wedding ended and I was packing up my equipment, Luca helped me carry things to my car. We stood in the parking lot, neither of us wanting to leave, drawing out the goodbye as long as possible. This feels like a dream, I said. Like I'm going to wake up and you'll be gone again. I'm real. He took my hand, squeezed it gently. And I'll see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock at that coffee shop you suggested. I'll be there early, probably. I'll be the guy who can't stop smiling. I'll be the one with the camera, I said. Always with the camera. I remember. His thumb brushed across my knuckles. I remember everything. We met for coffee the next day. 2 o'clock became 5 o'clock. Became dinner, became walking around the city as the sun set. We talked about everything. The years we'd lost, the lives we'd built, the people we'd become. He told me about getting out, about the halfway house and the struggle to find work, about finally getting his degree and his certification. He told me about the kids he worked with now, teenagers in the system like he'd been, and how he tried to be the person he'd needed when he was young. I told him about my photography, about the weddings and the portraits and the occasional gallery show. I told him about the relationships that hadn't worked out, about finally coming out to my parents 3 years ago, about building a chosen family of friends who loved me for exactly who I was. And we talked about those months in jail, about what they'd meant, about how we'd carried each other through the years without even knowing it. I compared everyone to you, Luca admitted. We were sitting on a bench by the river watching the lights reflect on the water. Every person I dated, every relationship I tried to build. I kept thinking, but it's not like it was with Reed. It's not that feeling. Me too, I said. I thought maybe I'd built it up in my head, made it more than it was. But seeing you yesterday, I knew. It wasn't my imagination. This is real. So what do we do now? He asked. We've been given this incredible second chance. How do we not mess it up? We take it slow, I said. We get to know each other again. We build something real, not based on who we were or what we remember, but on who we are now. And we don't run away when it gets hard. I can do that. He turned to face me, and in the glow of the streetlights he was beautiful. I want to do that. I want to build a life with you, Reed, if you'll have me. I've been waiting 15 years for you to ask, I said. And then I kissed him. Finally kissed him the way I'd wanted to that day in the yard, the way I'd dreamed about for so many years. It was gentle and sweet and felt like coming home. When we pulled apart, we were both smiling. Worth the wait? He asked. Worth everything, I said. That was 6 months ago. Now Luca has a drawer at my apartment, and I have a key to his place. We have dinner together most nights, either cooking at home or trying new restaurants around the city. We've met each other's friends, and they all say the same thing, that we look at each other like no one else exists. We take walks on Sunday mornings and stay up too late talking about our dreams. We're building something real and solid and beautiful. Last week I photographed him for the first time. He was self-conscious at first, uncomfortable in front of the camera, but I made him laugh, made him relax, and I captured him exactly as I see him, strong and gentle and full of hope. When I showed him the photos, he got quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Is that really how you see me?" "That's exactly how I see you," I said. "That's how I've always seen you." He kissed me then, soft and slow, and whispered against my lips, "I love you. I never stopped loving you." "I love you too," I said, "and this time I'm never letting you go." We met behind bars 15 years ago, two scared young men who found something extraordinary in the worst possible place. We lost each other, lived entire lives apart, and somehow found our way back. People say you can't go home again, that you can't recapture the past. But this isn't about the past. This is about two people who were brave enough to be vulnerable, to be honest, to choose love when it would have been easier to walk away. We're not the same people we were at 22 and 24. We're better, stronger, more ourselves, and we're together. Finally, impossibly, beautifully together. And that's worth everything.